Welcome to my channel Anupma Biology Classes. This is the first video in the series of molecular biology. In this video, our topic is molecular basis of inheritance. This video is taken from chapter 6, part 1st of CBSE class 12th. So keep watching and gain knowledge of many biology topics, and these videos are helpful in board exams, NEET exams and any competitive exams in which biology is your main subject. So let's come on the topic, which is genetic material. Before this, in the previous videos, that is genetic topics, you have studied the pattern of inheritance and their genetic basis. You have studied the Mendel's factor regulating the pattern of inheritance, but the exact nature of these factors and their molecular basis was not clear. In fact, at the time of Mendel, the chemical nature of factors and their role in regulating the inheritance was not known. Further investigations were carried out in different laboratories of the world, and now the conclusion was drawn that DNA, that is ribonucleic acid, is the genetic material. There are two different types of nucleic acids. First one is DNA and second is RNA, which occur in almost all the living cells. So the question is, what is genetic material? The substance which stores biological information in a coded form, transfers it to the next generation and causes its expression in the offspring is called genetic material. Now, what is the need to be a genetic material? So, the genetic material should have some characteristics, like it should be present in every cell. Its amount should be same in all somatic cells. It should show diversity corresponding to the variety existing in the organism. It should be able to precisely duplicate itself, forming its carbon copies. It should be able to faithfully pass its copies into the progeny. It should be able to express its information in the progeny. It should be able to store information in the coded form for the control of biological functions of the cell. It should be able to occasionally develop inheritable changes. Now, why DNA is the genetic material? And what are the reasons and experiments to prove that DNA is the genetic material? So Sutton and Boveri in 1902 proposed that the genetic information passed between generations by way of chromosomes. But it took many years to clarify whether the genetic material was the DNA or the protein of the chromosomes. Both have the structural diversity as great as expected of the genetic material. So first, that is the protein. Originally, the protein were thought to play the role of genetic material because they are macromolecules that show enormous variety due to the various combinations of their 20 constituent amino acids and exhibit great specificity of the function. However, they have no mechanism for the duplication. Hence, they do not qualify to act as the genetic material. After this, the second, that is the DNA. DNA also shows a wide structural variety, and because the four types of nucleotides unit it is composed of may be arranged in an endless manner in its molecules. It also fulfills all the requirements of the genetic material that is listed above, and it has now been experimentally proved that DNA is the genetic material. How? So there are some characteristics of the DNA. That is, it is found in all the cells. All the somatic cells of a given species contain the same amount of DNA. It exhibits infinite variety due to unlimited sequences its monomer can occur in. It duplicates its genetic information by faithful replication during interphase. DNA copies are precisely distributed to the daughter cells during mitosis. It develops mutation in the genes and chromosomes occasionally. It stores genetic information as a triplet code. DNA expresses its genetic information by transcription of mRNA and synthesis of proteins. DNA governs the various life stages, and the DNA is able to repair itself if damaged to preserve the genetic information. So above properties of the DNA make it fit to act as a genetic material. Now, the experimental evidences for the DNA's role as genetic material, in which there are two experiments are cited to prove that DNA is a genetic material. The first one, that is the Griffith and Avery transformation experiment. The first direct evidence that the DNA transmits genetic information came from the experiments of the Griffith and Avery. So here you can see the Griffith experiment to show that the DNA is the genetic material. In 1928, British bacteriologist Frederick Griffith conducted a series of experiments using Streptococcus pneumoniae bacteria and mice. Griffith was not trying to identify the genetic material, but rather trying to develop a vaccine against pneumonia. In his experiment, Griffith used the two related strains of bacteria, that is R and S. R means rough and S means smooth. R strain, when grown in a petri dish, the R bacteria formed colonies or clumps of the related bacteria that had well-defined edges and a rough appearance, hence the abbreviation R for the R strain. The R bacteria were non-virulent, meaning that they did not cause sickness when injected into a mouse, while S strain bacteria formed colonies that were rounded and smooth, hence called S strain. The smooth appearance was due to a polysaccharide or sugar-based coat produced by the bacteria. This coat protected the S bacteria from the mouse immune system, making them virulent, capable of causing disease. Mice injected with the live S bacteria developed pneumonia and died. As part of his experiment, Griffith tried injecting mice with the heat-killed S bacteria. Unsurprisingly, the heat-killed S bacteria did not cause disease in the mice. The experiment took an unexpected turn, however, when harmless R bacteria were combined with the harmless heat-killed S bacteria and injected into a mouse. Not only did the mouse develop pneumonia and die, but when Griffith took a blood sample from the dead mouse, he found that it contained living S bacteria. So Griffith concluded that the R strain bacteria must have taken up what he called a transforming principle from the heat-killed S bacteria, which allowed them to transform into smooth-coated bacteria and become virulent. Now, the steps and results of the Griffith experiment. So here you can see the steps, like when the mouse injected with the S strain, mouse died. When the mouse injected with R strain, mouse survived. When the mouse injected with heat-killed S strain, mouse survived. When mouse injected with heat-killed S strain and the living R strain, mouse died and from its blood live S strain bacteria recovered. When mouse injected with heat-killed S and living R strain and DNase enzyme, mouse survived. And when the mouse injected with heat-killed S strain, living R strain and the protease enzyme, mouse died of pneumonia. So these are the steps and results of Griffith experiment. Now, what are the problems behind the Griffith experiment? Griffith could not know the role of mice in the change of bacterial strain and what component of S strain bacteria caused virulence. So, there is no role of mice. A few years later, some other scientists found that when smooth heat-killed bacteria and the live rough bacteria were kept together in a culture medium, the former transmitted virulence to the latter, which got transformed into smooth virulent bacteria. And this proved that the mice cells had no role to play in the change of one strain of bacteria into another. And what is the role of bacterial extract? Still later, it was found that an extract of the smooth heat-killed bacteria also transformed the live rough bacteria into smooth virulent bacteria in culture media. This finding proved that some component of the bacterial cell rather than the whole cell, that is the transforming agent. After this, now the experiment of Avery, MacLeod and McCarthy, which is identifying the transforming principle. In this picture, you can see the experiments of Avery and others showing that DNA is the transforming agent. Here, R means rough, harmless bacteria, S means smooth, virulent bacteria. Only the intact DNA fraction of the extract transformed R or S. So in 1944, O.T. Avery and C. MacLeod and M. McCarthy separated the extract of smooth virulent bacteria into protein, DNA and carbohydrate fractions. Each fraction was separately added to a culture medium containing live rough bacteria. Only the culture that received the DNA fraction of the extract from virulent bacteria produced smooth bacteria, and this proved that the DNA was a transforming agent. And when DNA fraction was treated with the deoxyribonuclease, that is an enzyme that digests DNA, it became inactive and incapable of transforming the rough strain into the smooth strain. And this confirmed that DNA is the genetic material and it is not destroyed if the cells are killed with the heat. So, several times of the evidences suggested to Avery and his colleagues that the transforming principles might be DNA, in which the first, that is, the purified substance gave a negative result in the chemical test known to detect proteins, but a strongly positive result in a chemical test known to detect DNA. Second is the elemental composition of the purified transforming principle closely resembled the DNA in its ratio of the nitrogen and phosphorus. And the third is protein and RNA degrading enzymes had little effect on the transforming principle, but enzymes able to degrade DNA eliminated the transforming activity. So these results all pointed to the DNA as the likely transforming principle. Here you can see that the S-strain cells, that is a fraction of cells free extract into the classes of molecules. And here you can see R strain which form the R strain, proteins form the R strain, DNA form the S strain, lipid form the R strain and the carbohydrate form the R strain. So the conclusion is the molecule that carries the heritable information is DNA. Now, Avery, MacLeod and McCarthy experiment on the transforming factor, and here you can see that it is a permanent inheritable changes produced in one strain of bacteria by a substance isolated from another strain of the same kind of bacteria. A substance which brings about the transformation is called a transforming agent. For example, DNA in the above experiment, which you can see in this picture, and the conclusive evidence that the DNA is the only genetic material in organism has since been obtained in the several direct and indirect ways. So here you can see that the heat killed S strain. After this, the polysaccharide of the heat killed S strain attached with combined with the R strain. Here mouse dead. When the protein of the heat killed S strain are added with the R strain, mouse dead. When the lipid of the heat killed S strain attached with the R strain, mouse dead. When the RNA of the R strain, heat killed S strain, add with the R strain, mouse dead. But when the DNA of the heat killed S strain added with the R strain, mouse is living. So it shows the transforming factor, that is DNA is the transforming factor. Now, here you can see that the hypothesis that the genetic material of the cell is either protein or the nucleic acid, that means DNA or RNA. So here you can see that the remove lipids and sugars from a solution of the heat-killed S cells. So here in the solution only the proteins, RNA and DNA remains. After this, when it treats solutions with the enzymes to destroy protein, RNA or DNA, like when add proteinases, no proteins, when add RNAs, no RNA, and when add DNAs, no DNA. So, add to the culture containing the living R cells observed for the transformation by testing for the presence of the virulent S cells. And here you can see in case of the DNA that is no cell S cell appear. In case of the R cells, S cell appear, but in case of the protein, when R cells added, S cell appear. So conclusion is the transforming requires DNA, therefore it is the genetic material of the cell. So after this experiment, it is proved that the genetic material is DNA or RNA. Now, the second experiment, that is Hershey and Chase experiment. So, the best evidence is provided by the experiments of Hershey and Chase, who worked with virus that infect bacteria called the bacteriophages. Now, here you can see that the Hershey and Chase experiment. Alfred D. Hershey and the Martha Chase performed experiment in 1952 using viruses that infect bacteria. Such viruses are called bacteriophages. The bacteriophages get attached over the surface of bacterium and inserts its genetic material into the bacterial cell. The two scientists performed their experiments with the bacterium E. coli and the bacteriophage T2, as both are known to inhabit the human intestine. Bacteriophage T2 has a DNA core and a protein coat. When it's come in contact with a living bacterium, its DNA core enters the cell but its protein coat remains outside. Hershey and Chase wanted to confirm it. They used different radioactive isotopes to label DNA and the protein. First, they grew T2 with the E. coli in the presence of radioactive sulfur S35. Because protein but not DNA containing sulfur radioactive atoms were incorporated into the protein coat of the T2 only. These walls bacteriophages were used to infect normal bacteria and the protein coats were separated from the bacterial cell walls by shaking and centrifugation. Okay, so the protein coats being lighter stay in the supernatant and the infected bacteria settle down in the centrifuge tube. It was found that almost the entire radioactivity was associated with the protein coats in the supernatant and almost none with the bacterial cell. This showed that the bacteriophage protein coat did not enter the bacterial cell during the infection. So, here Hershey and Chase then repeated the experiments by making the DNA core of the bacteriophage labeled with the atoms of the radioactive phosphorus P32 because DNA but not protein contains phosphorus. The T2 proteins coat remained unlabeled and this experiment showed radioactivity in the bacterial cell fraction instead of in the protein coat supernatant. And this proves that only the bacteriophage DNA enters the bacterial cells. So, this is the experiment of Hershey and Chase to show that DNA is the hereditary material in the bacteriophage T2. Now, how the DNA is the genetic material of the T2 phase. There was another rather more important findings of the experiment. The bacteria which had the bacteriophage DNA in them but were cleared of the bacteriophage protein coats from their surface produced a new generation of normal bacteriophages in them. Since the DNA of the infected bacteriophages has given rise to a fresh crop of bacteriophages and it is clear that the DNA functions as the hereditary material in the bacteriophage T2. After this, the additional evidences for the DNA being genetic material. In eukaryotes, a diploid set of chromosomes has twice as much DNA as the haploid set present in the gametes of the same organism. Also, prior to mitosis, a eukaryotic cell exactly doubles its DNA content and during mitosis, the DNA is distributed exactly half and half to the two daughter cells. So this is the additional evidences for the DNA being the genetic material. Now, the structure of DNA. So, DNA is a genetic material in all the organisms. In certain viruses such as the AIDS virus and the tobacco mosaic virus, that is TMB, RNA is the genetic material. Nucleic acid was first isolated in 1868 by the Friedrich Micher from the nuclei of the pus cells. He called it nuclein. Nuclein was renamed nucleic acid by the R. Altman in 1889. In the prokaryotic cells, DNA is circular and occurs in the cytoplasm as a component of the prochromosomes and plasmids. In the eukaryotic cells, the DNA is linear and largely confined to the nucleus as a component of the chromosomes called nuclear DNA. A small quantity of the DNA also occurs in the mitochondria and plastid called extranuclear or organelle DNA. It is circular. The DNA content is fairly constant in all the cells of the given species. After this, what is the chemical composition of the DNA? So here you can see that in the picture, that is nucleotide component, and the chemical structure of DNA was explained by P.L. Levene. That is, DNA is the largest biomolecule, also the largest macromolecule. DNA molecule is a long double chain of the deoxyribonucleotide or the deoxyribotide units, and the two branch and are twisted around a common axis to form a right-handed double helix, that is a spiral, and that encloses a cylindrical space inside it. So in nucleotide components, there are three components. First one is the phosphate group, second is the pentose sugar, and the third one is the nitrogenous base. Now the components of the nucleotide, and here in this picture you can see that all the components of the nucleotides. So at first one, that is, there are three different molecules are present in case of the deoxyribonucleotide units. First one is the phosphate group, second is the deoxyribose sugar in case of DNA and the ribose sugar in case of RNA. And the third one is the nitrogenous bases, in which there are two types of bases. First one is the pyrimidine and the second is purine. So there are three bases, two types of bases in which, that is adenine, thymine, uracil, guanine and cytosine. So these all are the bases, that is purine, which is double ring structure, and the pyrimidine, that are single ring structure. So the nitrogenous bases may be a 9-membered double ring, that is purine, which is adenine and guanine, and the 6-membered a single ringed pyrimidine, which is thymine cytosine in case of the DNA and uracil in case of the RNA present. After this, now the fragments of three different DNA molecules. So in each chain of the phosphate molecule carried by the carbon atoms at position 5th of the sugar in one nucleotide unit is joined by a phosphodiester bond to the hydroxyl component of the carbon atom at position 3 of the sugar in the next nucleotide unit. And these third, fifth phosphodiester bonds provide a considerable stiffness to the polynucleotide, and the alternating sugar phosphate sugar component form the backbone of the DNA double helix. So the nitrogenous base molecules are joined to the sugar molecules by the glycosidic bonds and project into the space enclosed in the helix at about 90 degrees to the long axis of the helix, which you can see in this picture. The glycosidic bond between first carbon of the sugar and the nitrogen at the position first in case of pyrimidine base and at position 9 in case of purine bases. The two deoxyribonucleotide chains are held together by the hydrogen bonds. Now here you can see that the in chain, that is the sugar phosphate bone present, which is known as the backbone, and here the ribose sugar in case of the RNA and the deoxyribose sugar in case of the DNA. In between the nitrogenous bases, hydrogen bond formed. So this is the structure of the fragments of the three different DNA molecules. Now here you can see that the anti-parallel direction. So here the two chains of the DNA molecules run in opposite or anti-parallel direction, and this means that the carbon atoms at position 5th in the sugar component is in one direction in one chain and in the opposite direction in the other chain. Thus the two chains are parallel but their 5th to 3rd direction are opposite. So the complementarity of the base in and parallel direction of the two chains of the DNA molecules provide the basis for the precise replication of the DNA and proper transcription of the RNA. In this case, the polynucleotide chains show polarity, that means direction. One each of DNA strand is called fifth end, and the last deoxyribose unit at this end has carbon at position 5 free. The other end of the strand is termed third end. So the last deoxyribose unit at this end has the carbon at position 3 free. So this is the polarity and anti-parallel direction. Now here you can see that the adenine of one chain is always joined by the thymine of the other chain by the two hydrogen bonds, and the cytosine of one chain is always linked to the guanine of the other chain by the three hydrogen bonds, which you can see in this picture. So thus there are only four possible base pairs, that is AT, TA, GC and CG in DNA, and the phosphate groups provide acidity to the nucleic acid. Both glycosidic and phosphodiester bonds are formed by condensation reactions that involve elimination of water. After this, now you can see here that is DNA complementarity. Complementary base pairing makes it possible to produce two identical strands by separating the parent molecule and using each strand as a template to build a new complementary strands. So here you can see that the parent DNA molecule, which forms the complementary nucleotide bases attached to each template strand, then it forms the two identical daughter DNA molecules. This process is known as replication. Now, how the cytosine attached with the guanine and the adenine attached with the thymine. So, the two polynucleotide chains of the DNA molecule are not identical but complementary to each other with the respect to base pairs, and this is due to restrictions on the base pairing. A base pair must consist of a purine and a pyrimidine, and there are two reasons for these limitations. Why and how? The first one, that is the space available between the two sugar phosphate chains of the DNA, that is 2 nm, that is 20 angstrom, can accommodate one purine and one pyrimidine, but not two purines, which would be too wide, and not two pyrimidine, which would be too close enough to form the proper hydrogen bonds. It may be noted that the purine bases with the two carbon rings are about twice as wide as pyrimidine bases. So this is the space in the DNA double helix suits one purine and one pyrimidine only, because the pyrimidine and pyrimidine are too narrow and purine and pyrimidine have width consistent with X-ray data, and purine are too wide. Now, a specific purine pairs with a specific pyrimidine because of a perfect match between hydrogen donor and the acceptor sites on the two bases. Only adenine and thymine and also guanine and cytosine have the proper spatial arrangement to form correct hydrogen bonding. Adenine and cytosine and also guanine and thymine do not form proper hydrogen bonds and cannot pair. This concept of the specific base pairing provides that an adenine is one chain must be matched with the thymine in the other chain, and a guanine in one chain must have cytosine opposite to it in the other chain. Thus, the two chains are complementary to each other. Hence, from the base sequence in one DNA chain, the base sequence in its complementary chain can be easily predicted. For example, if the base sequence in the chain is A, T, C, G, G, C, T, A, that in the other chain will be T, A, G, C, C, G, A, T. So this is the complementarity of the base pairs. Now, Sargaff rule. So what is the Sargaff rule? In 1950, Erwin Sargaff formulated important generalizations about the DNA structure, and these generalizations are called Sargaff rules in his honor. They are summarized below. So in case of Sargaff rule, first one, that is A plus G equals to T plus C. It means the purines and pyrimidines are always in equal amount. Second, that is A equal to T and G equal to C. It means the amount of adenine is always equal to that of thymine and the amount of guanine is always equal to that of cytosine. However, the amount of A plus T is not necessarily equal to G plus C. The base ratio A plus T by G plus C may vary from one species to another but is constant for a given species. The deoxyribose sugar and the phosphate components occur in the equal proportions. So these four are the Sargaff's rule. Now after this, what is denaturation and renaturation? So the first one is denaturation. If DNA molecule is exposed to a high temperature or titration with an acid or an alkali, the two strands unwind and separate by the breakdown of hydrogen bonds between the base pairs, and this process is called denaturing or melting. And when the denatured DNA is incubated at a low temperature, the two separated strands reassociated to form a DNA duplex, and this process is called renaturation. After this, what is the physical structure of a DNA? Astbury, by his X-ray diffraction, studied and suggested three-dimensional configurations for the DNA molecules due to its high density. Here you can see that is Rosalind Franklin of the London and her X-ray diffraction photo of the DNA. Photo showed three-dimensional configuration for the DNA and helped Watson and Crick to deduce the double helical structure of the DNA. DNA is dextrorotatory. Maurice H.F. Wilkins and Rosalind E. Franklin confirmed Astbury's interference in 1953 with the X-ray diffraction photographs taken by the passing X-rays through crystals of the DNA and suggested helical configuration for the DNA molecules. So, the purines and pyrimidines seemed to be flat rings arranged at right angles to the sugar-phosphate backbones and stacked one above another. The successive base pairs appeared to be 0.34 nm, that is 3.4 angstrom, apart in the stack. So, the above investigations helped Watson and Crick to design a model of DNA molecule in 1953. So, now the next in, what is the Watson and Crick model of the DNA? J.D. Watson and the American biologist, that is F.H.C. Crick, an English chemist in 1953, designed the model of DNA molecule to explain its structure. And this model now named in their honor and got them to 1962 Nobel Prize along with the Wilkins. According to Watson and Crick model, the DNA molecule consists of two long parallel chains, that is strands, which are jointed together by a short crossbars at the regular intervals. The two chains are spirally coiled around a common axis in a regular manner to form a double helix. The double helix is of the constant diameter of the 2 nanometer or 20 angstrom and has a major groove about 22 angstrom. wide and a minor groove about 12 angstrom wide alternately. One complete spiral turn of a helix is 3.4 nm or 34 angstrom long and has 10 base pairs. So, the base face the interior of the double helix and are stacked, that is 3.4 angstrom apart. The sugar and phosphate component form the backbones on the outside and the helix is generally right-handed. That is, its turn run clockwise looking along the helix axis. So here you can see that the Watson and Crick model of the DNA molecule and the arrows here that shows the direction of carbon fifth of the sugar molecule. So in other words, you can say that the DNA molecules has the form of a twisted ladder. The vertical bars of the ladder are formed of the alternately phosphate and deoxyribose sugar components. The horizontal runs of the ladder are jointed to the sugar component of the vertical bars and are composed of purines and pyrimidine linked up by the hydrogen bonds. Now, the sense and antisense strands. So what are the sense and antisense strands? The sense strands, in this picture you can see this is the antisense strand and this is the sense strand. The sense strand is the coding strand. Its nucleotide sequence is the same as the mRNA except thymine is replaced by the uracil. While the antisense strand is the template strand and the sense strand may not be the same for all the genes. So, the antisense or missense chain is important in the replication of DNA molecule but does not take part directly in the transcription. It is copied from the sense chain. And a part of sense strand that codes for a polypeptide is called a cistron, and each cistron consists of many codons, and a codon comprises 3 consecutive nitrogenous bases. A codon specifies a single amino acid in a polypeptide chain. So this is the sense and antisense strand. What is cistron? After this, now the packaging of DNA helix, which is also known as the concept of nucleosome. So, here, as stated earlier, the length of DNA helix of a mammalian cell is very long. It is approximately 2.2 meters in length and many times much longer than the dimension of a typical nucleus. So, such a long chain of the DNA helix is organized in such a way that it is accommodated inside the nucleus. In case of prokaryotes, where there is no definite nucleus, the DNA is not scattered throughout the cell and it is organized to form a nucleoid. In fact, the DNA molecule is negatively charged so that it is held at the place with some proteins to form a coil loops at reduce the length. In case of eukaryotes, the organization of DNA helix is much more complex. It is associated with a set of positively charged basic proteins that are called histones, which you can see in the picture. Histones are low molecular weight proteins rich in basic amino acids lysine and arginine. The DNA and histones are loosely bound together in about 1:1 ratio to form deoxyribonucleoproteins, also called chromatin. So, the positively charged R group of these amino acids binds strongly to the negatively charged phosphate groups of DNA, and this linkage maintains the helical form of the DNA molecules without disturbing its structure. And histones are organized to form a unit of 8 molecules called histone octamer. In this picture you can see the octamer histone, that is H2A, H2B, H3 and H4. Each one is 2. It consists of 2 molecules, each of the 4 different histones, and a molecule of 5th histone that are called H1 attached to the DNA near the bead. And this complex structure consisting of negatively charged DNA wrapped around the positively charged histone octamer is called nucleosome. Now, each nucleosome is connected to the next by a short DNA linker, that is, a nucleosome and a linker are together referred to as chromatosome. So, now in this picture you can see the progressive folding of the chromatin fibers to form about 1400 nm thick eukaryotic chromosome. So what is it? This is the solenoid model of the DNA in the DNA packaging in case of the eukaryotes. It is carried out with the help of lysine and arginine rich basic proteins called histones. The compacted mass is called nucleosome. 4 of the 5 histones proteins occur in pairs to produce histone octamer called NU body. About 166 base pair of the DNA is wrapped over the NU body for turns to form a nucleosome of size 11 into 6 nm. And DNA connecting the two adjacent nucleosome is called interbreed or the linker DNA. So the nucleosome and the linker DNA together constitute chromatosome, and the nucleosome chain gives a beads on a string appearance under an electron microscope. So in this picture you can see the complete structure here. The nucleosomal organization in about 10 nm in thickness, which gets further condensed and called to produce a solenoid of 30 nm diameter. This solenoid structure undergoes further coiling to produce a chromatin fiber of 30 to 80 nm and then a chromatid of 700 nm. So the chromatid is held over a scaffold of non-histone chromosomal or NHC proteins. At some places, the chromatin is densely packed to form the deeply, that is darkly staining heterochromatin. At other places the chromatin is loosely packed to form euchromatin, which is lightly stained. So the euchromatin is transcriptionally active chromatin, whereas the heterochromatin is transcriptionally inactive and later replicating or heteropyknotic. So here the short region of the DNA double helix is converted into the bits on a string form of chromatin. Then it's converted into 30 nm chromatin fiber of packed nucleosome. Then it converted into the section of chromosome in an extended form. Then it converted into the condensed section of the chromosome. Then it's converted into the entire mitotic chromosome. And here you can see in this picture, this is the structure of a chromosome, which is a spirally coiled form of a DNA double helix. So this is the complete structure of the how the packaging of DNA helix occur in the cell. Now after this, now the labels of the DNA packaging. So there are 4 labels. At first, the 2 nm double stranded DNA molecule forms, which is converted into the 11 nm nucleosome, which you can see in the picture. This is a solenoid model. Then it converted into the 30 nm chromatin fiber, and after this it converted into the organization around the central scaffold. This is the label of DNA packaging. After this, now the different forms of the DNA. So there are many types of DNA. The X-ray analysis of the DNA crystals at atomic resolution have revealed that the DNA exhibits much more structural diversity than formerly investigated, and such variations are like the bDNA, most commonly originally deduced from the X-ray diffraction of the sodium salt of the DNA fibers at 92% relative humidity. aDNA, which is originally identified by the X-ray diffraction of analysis of DNA fibers at 75% relative humidity. ZDNA, left-handed double helical structure, bends to the left in a zigzag pattern. And the next is, that is last, cDNA, formed at 66% relative humidity and is presence of the Li, that is the lithium, and the magnesium 2+ ions. Here in this picture you can see the differences between the various type of DNA, that is bDNA, aDNA and zDNA. Direction of coiling in case of aDNA is right-handed, in case of bDNA is also right-handed, and in case of zDNA is left-handed. While the base pairs per turn in case of aDNA is 11, in case of bDNA is 10, and in case of zDNA is 12. If we talk about the sugar phosphate backbone, in case of A DNA is smooth, in case of B DNA is smooth, but in case of Z DNA is zigzag pattern. If we talk about the length of the turn, the B DNA is 34 angstrom long and the Z DNA is 45 angstrom long. So this is the complete differences and the different forms of the DNA. Now, the coding and non-coding regions, which you can see in this picture. This is the coding regions, which is known as exons, and the non-coding regions, which is known as introns. So at first, the non-coding DNA. The greater part of the DNA in eukaryotic cells does not code for RNAs, and this extra or non-coding DNA seems to have no function. So the second is coding DNA. The coding DNA sequences lie as island in the seas of non-functional DNA sequences, and it is of two types. First one is protein coding DNA, which is contains most of the genetic information and it codes for all the proteins other than histones. And the second is DNA coding for RNAs, tRNA and histones. The DNA sequences that code for RNA, tRNA and histones are repeated because these substances are needed in large amount in the cells. Human genome contains 400 copies of the ribosomal RNA genes. So these are the coding and non-coding regions. DNA in a cell may be functional or non-functional. So coding regions are functional and the non-coding regions are non-functional. The non-coding DNAs may have base sequence repeated several times. So the repeated sequence are collectively called repetitive DNA. After this, now the functions of DNA. So what are the functions of the DNA? It plays many roles in the organism, like it is the genetic material and carries hereditary characters from the parents to the young ones. It enables the cell to maintain, grow and divide by directing the synthesis of structural proteins. It controls metabolism in the cell by directing the formation of necessary enzymatic proteins. It produces RNAs by transcription for the use in protein synthesis. It creates variety in population by causing recombinations through crossing over. It brings about differentiation of the cells during development. It controls postnatal development through adulthood to death by its internal clock. Thus, the DNA is the very basis of life and the use of DNA and proteins in determination of evolutionary kinship. Now, after this, so the summary of the DNA characteristics. So there are main features of the DNA that are the DNA molecules is a double chain of deoxyribonucleic units. The successive units are joined by the phosphodiester bonds in each chain. The sugar phosphate backbones are located on the outside of the molecule. The bases project inward at planes approximately perpendicular to the long axis of the molecules and are therefore stacked one above the other. The two chains are spirally coiled around a common axis to form a right-handed double helix. The helix has a major groove and a minor groove alternatively. The helix is 20 angstrom wide, its complete turn is 34 angstrom long and has 10 base pairs. The successive base pairs are 3.4 angstrom apart. The two chains are complementary to each other with respect to base sequence. The two chains are hydrogen bonded. A, that means adenine on one chain is joined to the thymine on the other chain by the two hydrogen bonds, and the cytosine on the one chain is linked to the guanine on the other chain by the three hydrogen bonds. The two chains are anti-parallel, one aligned in the fifth to third direction and the other is third to fifth direction. The amount of A plus G equal to the amount of T plus C, and the amount of A equal to the amount of T, and the amount of G is equal to the amount of C. And the sugar and phosphate groups occur in equal proportions. The DNA molecule is remarkably stable due to the hydrogen bonding and the hydrophobic and electronic interactions. The DNA molecule undergo denaturation and renaturation easily. The denatured DNA strands are hyperchromic. The DNA molecules can replicate and repair itself and can also transcribe RNAs. The base sequence of one chain serves as the genetic code. The DNA can function in vitro. The amount of DNA per molecule is constant in all the body cells of a given species. The solutions of the DNA are highly viscous due to the long, stiff molecules. A DNA double helix has a polyanionic surface that forms complexes with positively charged proteins. DNA is dextrorotatory. Eukaryotic DNA has many repetitive sequences, and some repetitive sequence may be mobile. Only a small fraction of DNA is functional in case of the eukaryotes. So this is all the summary of the DNA characteristic. Now, the difference between the prokaryotic and eukaryotic DNA. So here you can see that main differences. In case of prokaryotic DNA, it occurs in the cytoplasm, while the eukaryotic DNA occurs in the nucleus, mitochondria and plastid. Prokaryotic DNA much lesser in amount than in eukaryotic cells, while the eukaryotic DNA is much more in amount than in the prokaryotic cells. Prokaryotic DNA is circular in form, while the eukaryotic DNA is linear in form in the nucleus, circular in mitochondria and plastids. Prokaryotic DNA, there is little non-functional DNA, while in case of the eukaryotic DNA, greater part of the DNA is non-functional. In prokaryotic DNA exists as a single chromosomes, while in the eukaryotic DNA exists as two to many chromosomes. In prokaryotic DNA, no organelle DNA, while in case of eukaryotic DNA, mitochondria and chloroplast have organelle DNA. Prokaryotic DNA can code for a fewer proteins, while the eukaryotic DNA can code for far more proteins. So, this is the end of video in which you have studied about the genetic material, experimental evidences for the DNA's role as genetic material, structure of DNA, Sargaff rule, Watson and Crick model of the DNA, solenoid model, types of DNA and the function of DNA, and the summarized view of the DNA characteristic. So, the next upcoming video will be on the replication and the transcription of the DNA. So if you understand this video, like and share it and subscribe to my channel Anupma Biology Classes. If you have any questions, any queries or any suggestions, you can ask in the comment section below. Thank you for the watching.